Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeartRadio network, the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. You good old boys from Canada, we love you so much, but there's still no one I love more, Big C, than you good old boys down south and the land of the free and the home of the brave. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys? Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. They always want to lock you good boys up down south. You know how the law enforcement gets down there. But I want to say it's a beautiful day, a day that everybody's anticipated here in Northern California, in the Bay Area. A beautiful June the 1st, 2017, coming to you from down the old Crow Arena. I think it's called Rorco or Oracle, so I kind of Rorco. They call it Rorco Arena here at Big C in Northern California. A great facility, and it still saddens me that they only have 2 more seasons to tip off here before they go back across the bay in San Francisco. I do want to say this section is brought to you by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. And also, Big C, just want to get your thoughts. We have so many great things happening. The best news I've heard so far is them good old boys that threw the fish out on the arena, they got acquitted. Okay, they realized it was Southern hospitality. They had that confused with a misdemeanor, so the judge let them off the hook. Big C, your thoughts? Yeah. Yeah.
No one was injured. It was all done in good fun. And I mean, evidently this is a judge that's not used to, enduring hockey.
Yeah.
The hockey people and the hockey gods are used to different things in different sports. This is not football. It's not basketball. This is where a sport where people go to see the difference.
Yeah.
You want to go see the fight. You get a hockey game. You get a boxing match. You get a little baseball thrown in there. So, to be a hockey aficionado and understand what the game and the fans are all about, I think somebody may have tweeted or called this judge and said, hey, you're out of line right now.
Yeah, he was a little bit out of line, but that shows that judges do have a sense of humor. They also understand how to let guys off the hook for just trying to do tradition. A lot of people don't know that Southern hospitality means when you go to someone's house in the South, they actually throw a fish at you, a raw fish. That means welcome to the family, from what I understand. Big C, is that true?
That raw fish is tossed to you while the grease is warming up. Got a little corn, little hot sauce on the side.
Yeah.
Maybe a tall, cold one, for when he jumps out of the grease, to help him cool down a little bit as he's going down the throat. But, this is a place where we love fish.
Yeah.
It's called healthy eating.
Oh, yeah.
Rather being drowned in a couple of gallons of grease, it's still healthy.
Yeah, I appreciate the, I guess, Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, the district attorney spokesman. His name is Mike Manico. They were saying that the only thing wrong is they wanted that catfish fried, Big C, like the good old boys do down south. But anyway, glad they got past that. Have a lot of good things to talk about tonight here in Oakland, California. I think ESPN invaded my spot over in Fisherman's Wharf, so I had to find a new spot, Big C. They had too many people over there trying to cramp our style. But I do want to say what a gorgeous day for Game 1 of the NBA Finals. We still have other sports going on. You good old boys down south, Nick Saban's not afraid of anybody. Last year they played USC. We know they gave USC some moonshine. They thought it was Gatorade, and they were all sluggish coming out for that kickoff play. Yeah, they gave us a moonshine, Big C. Yeah, they gave us a moonshine. They whip them. They open up a can. I understand. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they played with USC, the Detroit. Lynn Swann still hasn't recovered from that. But now them good old boys are taking on Florida State. Florida State might be one of the top 2 or 3 programs in the country, no matter who's coaching or who's playing, but they play at Alabama on September 2nd. That game's actually going to be, I believe it's at the new Mercedes-Benz Dome down in Atlanta, Georgia. I think that's one of the most beautiful stadiums the NFL will ever see. It has, I believe, a retractable dome top. It's just a gorgeous place. But your thought on Nick Saban taking on the best of the best starting out in week 1, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Jonathan, this is not Nick Saban taking on. These are two of the best young African-American quarterbacks in college football.
Yeah.
When you think about Damon Hurd at Alabama, that was in the national championship game last year. And then you look at Francois, who was just a freshman also at Florida State and threw for over 4,000 yards, Jonathan.
Wow.
And is probably one of the most physically gutsy quarterbacks in college football. He's a great athlete. He's a kid with 4.4, 4.5 speed playing quarterback. But he's a pocket passer, Jonathan. When you talk about a young quarterback staying in the pocket, willing to take hits, look for his receivers, work through his progression of routes, this young man has it all. But when you think about these two great programs of historic legends meeting, Jonathan, in the opening game of the season down in the new Mercedes-Benz Dome down in Atlanta, this is a great opening day for college football.
Yeah.
And you and I have talked about this, is that you got to stop having these powerhouse schools playing all these weak schools on their ledger. They should have no more than 1 or 2 non-conference games on their ledgers, Jonathan, because when you're talking about some of these conferences, anywhere from 10 to 16 teams, there's enough teams within your conference to play your conference schedule throughout. But this is a great showcase. You're opening up this brand new stadium in Atlanta with 2 of the top programs in the country and 2 of the best young African-American quarterbacks in the country, Joe.
Yeah, Big C, that's a very good statement. So when you look at the SEC, we talked about the dominance over the years. I also look at what happened last year when USC, they slicked the moonshine into the USC.
I don't even know if they saw the stadium, Joe. I think they came out there with black eyes.
Yeah, well, we understand why that happened. So if you're Florida State, bring your own Gatorade. I think they said, who's that good old boy, Keith Jackson? Didn't he say that Gatorade was invented for the Southeast Conference? Well, I know the Southeast Conference, they replaced that Gatorade with a different kind of 8, Big C. So hopefully Florida State, them good old boys, will have their own drinks. Bring your own drinks, Seminoles. But it should be a fantastic game. That makes college football worth waiting for. Yeah, go ahead.
Was that last game between USC and Alabama sponsored by Kleenex?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
Because I still hear the tears flowing, man.
Yeah, I understand. But the men of Troy, they learned their lesson. Next time they're bringing their own stuff. But also, Big C, congratulations again. Nick Saban takes a lot of heat because he makes so much money. And we still talk about the pay inequality. We hope that they'll at least start to broach that subject because that's going to create a lot of interest. And it's really a great way to start off college football. I'd rather see Alabama playing a USC or Florida State as opposed to Alabama kicking off with the Citadel or someone like Florida State starting off with the Georgia Southern. It's big on big, and that's what we like, Big C. So congratulations to that. Also, just some more things around the world of sports. I know we'll get off in basketball as we close out the program today, but one of my favorite broadcasters is Mike Tirico. He's going to be doing play-by-play on Thursday Night NFL. He's actually replacing Al Michaels, but just for Thursday. I think, again, Al Michaels, he's out here from the Bay Area. He grew up out here in the Bay Area. At least that's where he started. But he's going to be replaced by Mike Tirico on Thursday Night Football, Big C. Is that a good move? Your thoughts?
Well, Mike Tirico, Jonathan, is a very solid broadcaster in his own right. When you look at the body of work that he was doing with ESPN when he was that property, I mean, he did all the sports. He did Monday Night Football. He did the PGA Tour, Jonathan. He did the NBA. Also did some Major League Baseball. He also participated in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Mike Tirico is just a quality broadcaster. When you look at Al Michaels not as young as he used to think he would be.
Yeah.
He's in his 70s, Jonathan. And so, when they get to certain ages, a lot of these great broadcasters like to cut back on some of their work and also pick the spots that they do.
Yeah.
But you also know that this move was in the work when, NBC hired Tirico away from ESPN a year ago, Jonathan.
Yeah.
That they did not hire him just to put him on the show. And even Al Michaels knew you bring Mike Tirico in, that he's going to be doing some of what I've been doing in the past as well as other broadcasters with the network.
Yeah.
You know that when you bring an ace in, you don't always bring an ace in. You may not start him the first week.
Yeah.
But eventually he's going to be in the number one in the rotation.
Well, yeah, I'm really proud of him and his climb in the broadcast business, Big C, because we know it's been kind of a closed door for a lot of men of color. But they make him the number one guy for Thursday night. I really think that's good for all the up-and-coming broadcasters out there, irrespective of your color. But Tirico is going to do a great job. We'll still see the great Al Michaels, Do You Believe in Miracles? And he's going to be on the Sunday games. So that's going to be great seeing him along with Chris Collinsworth. Someone that I really respect also, and someone I admire. We talked about Florida State playing Alabama in September 1st down in Atlanta for college football. But Lee Corso, I believe he also played at Florida State back in the day, Big C, and he's going to be 80. He's actually 81 years old, and he's still going to be on game day. He signed a multi-year contract extension with ESPN. I'm glad they did that because this man has a wealth of talent. He's also very funny, and he's also a person of color, Big C, that adds some more flavor to the world of broadcast. Big C, your thoughts on the great Lee Corso?
You know, you speak about Lee Corso. You know, he coached college football at the University of Louisville. He also played football at Florida State, and Burt Reynolds was his running back.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, when he was coaching at the University of Louisville, you think about the great Tom Jackson, who just left ESPN a year ago.
Yeah.
He coached the great Tom Jackson, a Hall of Fame linebacker from the Denver Broncos.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. That's good knowledge.
Lee Corso is well-versed as far as what he has done in the coaching and playing angles in college football. And when you think about his color analogy on game day, he brings a bit of that old school, as you like to say,
yeah,
and a bit of the modern technology into the game. But, you know, he's a showman.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that professional football misses, Charlton, is having a showman around.
Yeah.
Lee Corso is an iconic figure on game day, but he brings a different perspective and insight. That, you know, he's not an analytical guy. He's not.
Yeah.
He talks about the game. He talks about the players and coaches. He tells you from a real perspective, Charlton, what he feels will occur during a broadcast and which team has the advantage and what to look out for.
Yeah.
You know, and really the mascot show that he puts on, Charlton.
Oh, he's funny.
Who's going to be the player of the game. I mean, he has a lot of followers just waiting on that. So I give kudos and, you know, and a big ups to ESPN because they've gotten rid of so many people as of late.
Yeah.
To keep an elder statesman on like Lee Corso.
Yeah.
That's a great move for not just college football talking, but for society as a whole.
Well, Big C, I'll tell you, and I'm proud of ESPN for doing that, but I'm not proud of ESPN for taking our thing back in the day. We've been saying back in the day since we started Big C Sports, and now they made their own segment called Back in the Day. They actually featured Michael Jordan from 20 years ago when he had his final shot in an NBA playoff game, I think, Big C, for the Bulls at least. And they have their own segment called Back in the Day. I said, Big C, are you doing some moonlighting work at ESPN? Because you started that term, but they didn't say it came from Big C Sports. They just said Back in the Day, this segment. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, you know, Charlton, that's the wonderful thing about ESPN. They have such a great research staff.
Yeah.
They have guys on the payroll who do nothing but scour other sports shows
Yeah.
to find bits and pieces to take and manipulate it and use it as theirs. And I want to thank them for bringing us into the spotlight.
Yeah.
You know, for taking our segment back in the day and making it a feature segment of ESPN now.
Yeah.
And people have to understand ESPN may be the worldwide leader in sports, but they're not the originators.
Oh, no.
You got to understand, USA, you know, ESPN is like USA Today.
Yeah.
They get everything from yesterday and make it theirs today.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you took the broadcasters, and I love the way you bring that up all the time, Charlton, turn off the teleprompter.
Yeah.
Take away the notes.
Yeah.
Show us that you're a real broadcaster. You know, it's like when we just lost Frank DeFord, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Week, Charlton.
A great one.
Great writer from Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, excellent.
Who was such an iconic figure with the pen and the typewriter, Charlton. He was real, and he could tell a story. He could keep you captivated.
Yeah.
I don't know of anybody on television today, Charlton, that has these daily shows on television that can keep you captivated without having these producers, directors, this research staff, because every one of them you look at, they got 10 guys sitting around in front of computers doing what you tell them to do, Google all the time, Google it.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing all day long, Googling, feeding stuff to these guys because they're talking heads, they're not knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And so when we see these guys stealing our segment back in the day, as well as other statements that we have made on air that they have sort of like coined and try to make their own, I appreciate the acknowledgement of our expertise and professionalism because we don't have to steal what they do.
Well, Big C, that's,
and, you know, I'm on a boat, you're in a garage. That's pretty good advertising.
Yeah. Hey, actually, over here in Oakland, I went by the good old boys that I know over here and got my hair cut again. I mean, I shave it raw, Big C. I shave it down. And these good old boys, they were doing the Big C Sports Show. They had so many guys talking stuff, and I said they had some old guys in there. You know, some of those guys that you don't know why they get the haircut. They have no. It only grows in like 3 spots anyway, Big C. But they're still paying the bar. One brother had a jerry curl. It was only on the back of his head. He had no hair up top, but he would still get that jerry curl taken care of, Big C. I thought it was funny, but he knew his sports. I tell you that much, Big C. And I just want to say, number one, I'm so happy for everybody in the world of sports because I think we're going to be treated to a treat tonight with Golden State and also Cleveland. Even up on Twitter, I think the following's up on Twitter for Golden State by 50% since October, and for the Cleveland Cavaliers, you know, since October, 41%. So that shows you a lot of people are following these good old boys. And when people say the ratings are down on TV, they're not. They're not down at all. The ratings is because people can watch everything on their app. Even here at the sports bar over here in Oakland, Big C, getting my hair done, everybody's watching something on their phone. Even though there's a couple of large screen TVs up in here, everybody still has it on their phone. Talk about, since you started back in the day, technology has allowed people to bring the game to them as opposed to having to go to the sports bar or at their house. Big C, your thoughts? Can I spell beer? Oh, yeah. I still got a beta machine, Big C. Mine still works, though.
Technology, when I was going through it, for $2,200 you can buy a beta machine, all right?
Wow.
$2,200.
Obviously, you didn't know the right guy. I know some brothers that got it to me for $5, Big C, but that's my own information. Your thoughts?
I think about spending $2,200 on that machine compared to what you get nowadays, Jonathan, where everything can be done on your phone. You plug your phone into your TV and everything else. But, we were so hungry for the technology, and when you think about this, that advancement of technology, that's how the president is going to bring jobs back to America, that he's going to eliminate technology.
Yeah.
He's going to take it back to the beta age.
Yeah.
You had to get up and plug in this tape, flip it down into the, press the cartridge out and then everything else. But, you look at technology where it is now, Charlton, people are watching television in their cars.
Yeah.
They got the TVs in their cars, the headrests. As you say, everybody can walk around with these cellular devices in their hands.
Yeah.
And watch whatever they want to watch, whether it's HBO, Showtime, ABC, ESPN, whatever you desire to look at.
Yeah.
We're not strapped to a home chair any longer, Charlton. We're not even strapped to a bar that I love from time to time.
Yeah, I understand. In fact,
we have the ability to go wherever. I mean, I sit out here on the boat. I don't have no rabbit ears. I just turn it on and it comes in.
Yeah. Well,
this is where technology is taking us.
Yeah.
It has made everything accessible to the world. It has made sports even bigger than it ever was, Charlton, because people would call out from work years ago so they could watch a big game, an NBA playoff game, a World Series game, Charlton, the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Those been the number one call-out days of the year. Now everybody just pull the screen out of their pocket while they're working.
Yeah.
So the advancement of technology in the world has made America a wonderful place to be mobile in. And this game tonight, Charlton, may draw all-time numbers for an opening game of an NBA playoff series. When you think about it, you talked about the cellular devices, the homes, the bars, and me sitting on the boat, you in the garage. Hopefully you'll get out of it. Before you get aspirated from all that exhaust from the engine.
Yeah, I understand. You know how a lot of people started their shop in the garage. The good old boys that started Apple, Jobs, they all started from the garage. That's where a lot of genius work comes from. But that friend of yours, that time I went alligator hunting with you guys, I mean, I wasn't hunting. I was just in the car. I stayed in the boat. But when people say Big C uses rabbit ears, you really use a real rabbit, okay? It wasn't the aluminum kind.
We have people listening, okay? We all totally fancy, okay?
I understand. How do you catch alligators? You don't take worms, you take a rabbit. I'm like, that's kind of gross, Big C, but hey, you guys ate well that night, and your friend with the one finger, he's really bold. He still goes out even after having one finger. I didn't want to say much to him. He's too intimidating, but I'm telling you, good old boys, you do live a different way. I do want to say, you mentioned about the ratings, though. If you look at Golden State, and people talk about, is this the best team ever? Is Cleveland the best team ever? The margin of victory for the playoffs this year, Golden State's undefeated under Mike Brown. 16.3 points a game. That's their average margin of victory. So, are they the best team ever? Well, you can say they have the best margin of victory so far. It all depends on who wins this series. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, but Las Vegas already knows who's going to win this series. I'm picking Golden State in 6 just based on my information, Big C. But we'll get on that in a little bit. I just want to touch on one more thing in the world of sports, because I appreciate so much the young people that make sports happen. I want to say sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. When you need sports, you need insurance. You get it through Big C Sports. We go through Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. That's over 50 years for you good old boys down south. We're in all 50 states, and we're also in several continents around the world. Tweet out to Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network when you need athletics and event insurance. Big C, I want to bring up something that's a little bit painful, because we know we talk about it on Big C Sports. No, I'm not going to say anything about USC football, but I'm just... Oh, no, that too, but I keep that to myself. That's why I'm sitting on ice, Big C. That's why I'm sitting on ice. But that good old boy that won the Indianapolis 500, Sato, obviously, and I don't know how we can end this, but we just got to shout out people that are ignorant. He's received a lot of racial hatred just by being a Japanese American for winning the Indianapolis 500. It's not African Americans that are doing it. It's not Asian Americans. It's not Mexican Americans that are called rapists and murderers by POTUS. It happens to come from a white society. The same people that got on Jackie Robinson, the same people that shot down Muhammad Ali. I'm not trying to make the whole white community or white race part of that, but wouldn't you think there's some white person that's respectable? We know it can't be Donald Trump because he's a bigot. Isn't there anyone that can stop this stuff?
Everybody was mad, he would be mad.
Yeah.
And, his madness was to spew out to his fan base. And that's what we have, his fan base doing stupid scenarios like this.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, Jim Brown, we know what happened to the great LeBron James. He'll be tipping off tonight here at Oracle Arena. And he had some racial slurs, sprayed on his gate down in his LA mansion. And I'm sure, I don't want to label the whole Caucasian race because I'm not that dumb. But I do know this. When I was growing up, I was born in Jim Crow, so I had a good group of people around me, black and white. There were a lot of decent white people that would not allow that garbage to be spoken in their home or in their presence. Now, what they did when I wasn't there, I don't know. But I do know I'd be lying if I said there were no decent white people that came to my help when I met some of that bigoted behavior as a young boy playing sports, or even just being an African-American boy. Is there any prominent white American that can reach out to this segment of society that hates everything that's not white, and they have to say something negative about it? Who could be that person, Big C? Your thoughts?
It's called the national media, Joseph. That's what it's called, straight up. The national media. Because how do we find out about it? We find out about it through the national media.
Yeah.
So who's the advocate of it? The national media. They only talk about what this person has done, okay?
Yeah.
They don't condemn this person. They talk about what they've done. They're not condemning who they think it is. They only talk about what this person has done, so they give this person fuel for fire, and also the people who feel like them, Joseph.
Yeah.
Because every time we see one of these racial epithet outbursts, it's like in Boston when they blasted the Orioles.
Yeah.
Adam Jones, outfielder. When we hear the racial taunts going against him, we heard it in Boston Garden against one of the Wizards players.
Yeah.
Where the F was used continuously, an African-American player. We only hear it in that light, Jonathan. We're not hearing in an arena where we have African-American fans, Asian fans, or Mexican-American fans taunting white Americans, Jonathan.
Yeah.
So this racial epithet and misfeeling and misgiving comes from one part of society. And as you stated, all of society is not bad, but it's just like what Colin Kaepernick was standing up against social and criminal injustice against African Americans. And we have so many white Americans, and as you say, we're not targeting one sector of it. We're just targeting what's occurring.
Yeah.
We have white America that was mad at Colin Kaepernick because he was bringing issue to the racial and social injustice against African Americans. And so the racist part of America who backlash Colin Kaepernick are these same people who backlash Soto, are the same people who put the racial slurs on LeBron Gates at his home. Johnson, we don't have violence against other parts of society from minorities. This is what always has been understood in America.
Yeah.
Minority people have always been victims. It started Native American Indian, Charlton.
Yeah.
Started with the Mexican Americans, Charlton.
Yeah.
Started with the induction of slavery into America, Charlton. It started with the Asian Americans coming over working on the railways, Charlton, and the coal mines originally.
Yeah.
So when you think about the racial backlash that has come against people of different cultures, it's led by one race of people, Charlton, in America. And as you stated, all of them are not bad.
No.
But there's enough of them that are bad that make it uncomfortable for the rest of society. And it's led by the President of the United States.
Yeah.
It honestly is. It's led by the President of the United States. And when you got a ringleader like that, who has ultimate power, and you think about the number, Charlton, of racial disparities that have happened
Yeah.
since he's become president.
Yeah.
The racial attacks, verbally, physically, crimes against other cultures, Charlton, since
Yeah.
he's become president.
Yeah.
Him trying to ban cultures. This has led from the top, and it has gotten worse in America since the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Than it's been in 20, 30 years in America, Charlton.
Yeah, the shame in it, we talk about the land of the free and the home of the brave. America's a great place. I have great hope for our future, but Dr. King, he stood for something, and I hope that we have people who have a microphone or a TV camera in front of them that can take, even if it's just a minute, to say, let's stop this garbage. Jim Brown has some things to say about how LeBron James has handled this. Because LeBron James, he's an egotistical player. We know that. He's a great athlete. A lot of athletes have egos. But he's also a class act. And I respect him because he's a young man. And for him being a young man, he's not old like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He doesn't have the mileage that Kareem has, who's seen a lot of good and bad, who was born in Jim Crow and lived in Jim Crow. He's not older like Jim Brown, who actually grew up and lived in Jim Crow, and they managed to make it because of their brilliance athletically and intellectually. But I have hope that LeBron James, people like a Carmelo Anthony or Dwayne Wade or Chris Paul, or even Charlton and Big C, can bring this up enough. Maybe ESPN can copy that, and they'll have a consciousness about stamping out white hatred, because there's a lot of good white Americans who are also labeled unfairly when a few knuckleheads do all that racist garbage. So, yeah. Yeah.
In the opening dialogue of the game. Not just, and they may touch on it because it's been on national news.
Yeah.
But this is a subject, and LeBron James hit the nail on the head. He said it does not make any difference how much money you make in America.
Yeah.
When you're black in America, you're black, and it's so profound, Charles.
Yeah.
When you think about the hardships that even the most wealthy of black Americans have to endure, when you're driving down the street in a luxury automobile and you're pulled over and you're questioned.
Yeah.
First question is this your car? Are you on probation or out on bail?
Yeah.
The stupid questions that are asked by law enforcement, not just for your license and registration.
Yeah.
But you're even pulled over just because you're driving the car.
Yeah.
And like you can't afford it. If you're driving a particular vehicle, normally you can afford that particular vehicle. And because there's not a person in America that's pulled over, Charlton.
Yeah.
And your plates haven't been run before you pulled over.
Oh, yeah.
So they know who you are when they pull you over in the car.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. And most of the time a picture pops up from your driver's license.
Oh, yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
So they know who you are, but they still come up and challenge you, trying to provoke some anger so that they have an excuse. We shouldn't have a society like this, Charlton.
No.
You keep thinking that we're here in the new millennium that America has changed. We think that all the time because we see gracious athletes on television performing at a high skill level.
Yeah.
And everybody said, oh, wow, it's great. Look at these white guys on TV.
Yeah.
Athletes. That's such great talent.
Yeah.
Wow, I wish I could be like him, But would you invite him to your house? And I'll tell you the answer is, Charlton, yes.
Yeah.
You want to know why?
Why?
Because he's a rich black athlete.
Yeah.
So you would invite him to your house. But would you invite somebody other than him that of that same ethnicity to your house?
Yeah.
And you'll say, well, I don't know anything about him. What the hell do you know about the athlete other than that you saw him playing on TV? And as we talked about, last week, if you looked at the NFL blogger about how many criminals in the NFL,
yeah.
you're looking at like a criminal over to your house who's an athlete, but you wouldn't invite an African American over to your house who's a stockbroker that you didn't know what he did for a living. That's how society is.
Isn't that amazing? So hopefully, and we always say sports will change things. I know with Big C Sports, we're very bold. I appreciate your knowledge. And maybe because you eat a lot of fish, Big C, and alligator too. The good old boys, alligator. All the iron the alligator meat gives. Let me tell you, if you can survive an alligator fight, you're a bad dude, Big C. I have nothing but respect for you and your friends down south, even the ones with 3 fingers, Big C. But I do want to say, as we get ready for this NBA thoughts, I really want to get your thoughts on what's going on in the world of the NBA. And before we ever get on that, you know, the great Jack Nicklaus is 77 years old, one of the greatest golfers ever. I would hope that he could team with the guys like Jim Brown and talk about race in America. I hope that he could team with the guys like Coach Pop for San Antonio and talk about race in America, or Steve Kerr or Harry Edwards, because I believe, as I see all these different colors getting ready to go into Oracle Arena to watch mostly black men play, okay? They're going to see, I mean, America's diverse, but the top athletes in the NBA, they happen to be African-American, and everybody's full of happiness and joy, Big C, except for the barbershop. When you don't tip these guys what they think you should tip them, Big C, they don't dust it off the way they should. But the good old boys down here, I hope ESPN does a sports show from a barbershop here in the East Bay before they head out of town. But I just want to get your thoughts. If Great Jack, Harry Edwards, and, you know, guys like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because you need some prominent white guys to tell the people that think it's okay that it's not okay, that it's okay to break bread with different people. It's okay to break bread with different skin colors. Before we hit on the NBA, I just want your thoughts on that, Big C.
Well, Jonathan, you know, the story always comes like the sports figurehead.
Yeah.
We have enough people that are non-sports figureheads to lead that charge. This is what our politicians are about. This is what we, you know, elected them into office about, you know, to bring together the divide in America.
Yeah.
To find a solution for our cultures. We can't always call on athletes
Yeah.
to solve America's problems. Just because they're known by face on television doesn't mean that they have the political sovereignty to understand what all the societal problems are, because they're working their jobs. But we have elected officials in every city, starting with mayors.
Yeah.
You know, starting with
The president.
whatever government seat you have within a local city.
Or the president.
We have senators and house members.
Yeah.
These are the people that are supposed to break the strike, Charlton, on racial injustice in America. We have police officers who should be at the forefront of it, Charlton. There shouldn't be fear of any culture.
Yeah.
There's anyone in law enforcement, Charlton, but there is.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough dialogue to help create the situation. It's nice to put an athlete out there in the forefront and say, hey, okay, let's listen to LeBron, let's listen to Carmelo, let's listen to Harry,
Yeah.
and whoever, Charlton. But you want to listen to them playing their craft, Charlton.
Yeah.
Okay? We're not talking about bringing a CEO from Apple, although Bill Gates does do his part. All right?
Yeah.
We're not talking about the CEO from Chevrolet, and especially the CEO from United Airlines should be really the one out
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
trying to conquer this.
Yeah.
And the CEO from Southwest, when we take some of the major corporations in America, Dalton,
Yeah.
if they made it an endearing effort to help stem racial divide in America, then America would advance faster.
Yeah.
But without the CEOs of America, Charlton, taking the leadership, don't put it on the athletes. The athletes have enough of a burden on their shoulder trying to keep a job, okay?
Well, Big C.
CEOs create jobs and opportunity.
Yeah.
And by creating jobs and opportunity, you eliminate stress in American society.
Yeah.
And so until they're willing to do this, we will never solve the racial inequalities in America.
Well, Big C, something we are going to solve is who's the best team in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. We're not just talking about world champions. We're talking about the best basketball team in the universe. There must be some bad brothers on Mars and Saturn and Jupiter if they can beat whoever's going to win this year's NBA final. Coming here from Oakland near the Oracle Arena. Just got my hair cut at the barbershop. You know, the brother kind of gave me a mean eye until I went back and tipped him. I didn't know you had to tip. Big C, I'm already shaved. Why I got to tip a guy if I'm already shaved, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, that's to make sure that the next time that you wear jobs, the line is straight, okay?
Okay,
You know how straight your line is by how much you did the previous time that you're in the barbershop. And also, if there becomes an opening in the chair, you know, that's always critical. But, you know, it's like anybody else in the service industry, Charlton. They do a great job in America, regardless of the culture, of keeping every culture neat.
Yeah.
You know, the barbershop has always been an institution of America.
Yeah.
It's Americana. And when you go to a barbershop, regardless of which culture you are in America, you see a lot of the world's and country's problems solved in the barbershop.
Oh, yeah.
These gentlemen sit around of knowledge. And, you know, we talk about reading. You know, you go in, there's always magazines and newspapers in the barbershop, as well as the television running. But the television running is a secondary entity, Charlton. It's a noise machine in the back, for the most part, because it cannot be heard over most of the gossip and conversation that's going on in the barbershop.
Well,
but I remember as a young boy, you know, being taken into the barbershop to get the haircut, and you sitting around and these grizzly men sitting around.
Yeah.
And they've been in there every day, and none of them ever got the haircut. They've been in that space every day. They didn't shave, none of that stuff. They sit around and they sit in the nice school building.
Yeah.
Using up somebody else's air conditioning.
Yeah.
Sitting in a comfortable chair. So much knowledge, Joe.
Yeah.
I mean, you sit back as a young man, and there was a lot of profanity words that you heard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And they would always say, "Excuse me, young man, I'm sorry."
Yeah. I tell you, there could be we should do a Big C barbershop and do a franchise worldwide. You just said something that's so powerful. You learn so much knowledge going to these black barbershops. I'm sure every culture has that, but there's so many men. You see the older generation, from back in the day, ESPN, and you see the younger generation, and the old guys dropping knowledge to the young guys, and they know so much about politics and sports. It's like our show, Big C. Maybe that's where you got it from. I just didn't see any live alligators wrapped up with a rope, but I do want to say, I want to get back to your thoughts on this game.
You think about most of our listeners, and everybody's a movie buff.
Oh, yeah.
You know sports, you're a movie buff.
Yeah.
And I believe majority of our listeners saw the movie Coming to America with
Oh, Eddie Murphy.
Arsenio
Yeah.
Hall, Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
Great James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
These people that were in this movie. But the movie was resonated around a barbershop.
Oh, my God, it was real.
Arsenio Hall and Eddie Murphy playing all the roles in the barbershop.
Yeah.
With makeup.
Yeah.
But, when you sit there and you listen to the stories, the guys will tell you that you're lying, you don't know that's BS, everything else.
Yeah.
But, the education, and this is one of the most important things, I don't care where you are in the world, is education.
Yeah.
And that's listening to our elders, okay? And that's what you find in the barbershop, is the elders. And that's the problem with so many youth today, is that they don't listen to the elders, so you don't get that right capacity of knowledge.
Yeah.
And as I said, I learned so much, and a lot of it was profanity.
Yeah.
But I learned so much getting my hair cut as a youth. You sit up in there, and you didn't say 2 words.
No.
You were like a sponge.
You listened.
As a young man, and listen, because it was not your place to talk.
Yeah.
And these elderly gentlemen would let you know that.
Yeah.
You don't know enough to speak in here.
Yeah.
So what you did was you sit there and learn. And that's what we don't have enough of in society today of the youth, Jonathan. Whether it's in sports or just mainstream society, when you look at a lot of young athletes,
Yeah.
they don't listen to coaching. They see guys on television and figure that they're already there. They don't understand that those guys that we watch tonight
Yeah.
playing,
Yeah.
they listen to coaches, and that's how they got to the level that they are now.
Yeah, they listen.
Just because they walked into Foot Locker or Dick's Sporting Goods and bought a pair of Nikes and some sweatbands,
Yeah.
automatically they were catapulted into the NBA.
Yeah.
It didn't work that way. Or get some Under Armour cleats and some nice, neck roll and put on and all in the NFL.
Yeah.
It comes from coaching, Charles. It comes from mentorship.
Yeah.
The rites of passage. Listen to adults. Learn from adults. I heard years ago, and I always use this terminology. You don't get old by being no fool.
Is that the case? Is that the case? We've heard that so many times, and it's actually true, Big C. As we get your thoughts in the final few minutes on the NBA starting out tonight here in Oakland, Big C. Guess another theme that I talk about, Big C Sports voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C, them good old boys. There's some NBA writers right now saying the star power illuminates from the NBA universe, Big C. I guess they've been listening to Big C Sports also. Big C, give me your thoughts on the best finals in the universe tonight, starting out in Oakland, California. Your thoughts, Big C.
Charleston, the key to this game is can Golden State control LeBron James? All
Yeah.
right? I don't care what people say. It's his series to lose, okay? Not to win, but to lose. And, it's going to be a tall task. Who does Golden State put on? Do they put Draymond Green, who may get emotional?
Yeah.
Or do they let Kevin Durant run with him? Or do you bring Iguodala into the game early, Charleston?
Yeah.
You got to figure out a way to slow down LeBron. I know that Kevin Love is going to knock down some threes, Charleston.
Yeah.
That's inevitable. But on the other side of the slate, Charleston, Klay Thompson, who's been absent for the first 12 games of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Somebody got to get him, something to wake him up, some Adderall.
He need to go to the barbershop that I go to, Big C. They'll wake him up because they're real big. They keep it real. I think he'll come alive in this series, Big C. Go right ahead, sir.
Well, Golden State sorely needs Klay Thompson if they expect to win this championship, Jonathan, because he's been that missing piece of the card. They may have won by 16 points a game, Jonathan.
Yeah.
But if Klay Thompson can wake wake up, that can roll with 22 points a game, okay? But they sorely need him. You think about last year's series, okay?
Yeah.
If Golden State had won that series, Draymond Green would have been the series MVP.
Yeah.
You think about that last game, Charlton, when he had a triple-double?
Yeah.
And he didn't score double digits in points.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
He scored a triple-double and didn't score double digits in points. He had blocks, rebounds, and assists. This guy is the ultimate warrior on a team of superstars.
Yeah.
That's how good he is, that he can be great and no one notices because it's expected of him by himself and by his teammates and coaching staff. But this is what, we spent a little over a year waiting on.
Yeah.
For this game to kick off tonight. And like I said, it's LeBron's series to lose, but don't focus so much on LeBron. Keep an eye on Kyrie Irving. He's the one that makes the Cleveland Cavaliers go.
Yeah.
People talk about LeBron looking for teammates. Kyrie Irving, Charlton, this is a man playing with grown men.
Well, Big C.
He does so much with the basketball as far as his interior penetration.
Yeah.
Drawing people in, his basketball savvy, it's uncanny. He matches Steph Curry man for man. This is a point-for-point game tonight between those two. Who's going to get off and stay off tonight?
Well,
We know that Durant's going to get you at least 25 points.
Yeah.
And LeBron will be in that same stature.
Yeah.
So, will Kevin Love be shut down, Charlton? Or will Klay Thompson wake up?
Well,
That's going to be the decisive point in the game.
And Big C, when you think about this game, the ESPN stole your segment called back in the day. They had Jordan hitting his shot in the playoff game over Utah. I think about some of the great players over the history, whether it's Kareem, whether it's Magic Johnson.
Think about this.
Yeah.
When Jordan hit that shot against Byron Russell
Yeah.
in Utah for his 6th championship,
Yeah.
that ironically was Michael Jordan's last playoff basket of his life.
Isn't that amazing?
He scored another point in the playoffs after hitting that shot against Byron Russell. Even though he played with the Wizards,
Yeah.
he never scored another playoff basket.
Isn't that amazing, Big C? So when you think about the future, you think about the good old boys, whether it's, Wilt Chamberlain back in the day, you think about Bill Russell, you think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Dr. J, all these great players. You have Jerry West. I just think about the great players that have played the game. They are all hyped about seeing this game tonight because it's big on big. It is the best game in the universe. In fact, it's the hottest ticket in the universe in the sports world, Big C. And so whether it's Durant or Klay Thompson or Irving, I just want to say I think Draymond Green has always been my MVP for Golden State because he's the guy, he shows up in his blue jeans and his overall. Yeah, he drives an Escalade. I don't know how he sits into that little black BMW i8, but that Escalade is big enough for him. But he's the guy that shows up no matter who is the marquee guy, whether it's Durant, whether it's LeBron James or Curry. He shows up, and he flies under the radar. Other than talking a lot, he gets it done, Big C. So I just want to say I hope it's a great game tonight. I still have Golden State in 6 based on my good old boys down in Las Vegas. And I haven't put money on it this time because I learned the last time. I don't like a guy named Bill Collector showing up at my house at 2 in the morning asking if I'm still in town, Big C. I don't like that guy at all. But I just want to get your thoughts. We know we talked about the NBA. We talked about some college football kicking off in September. Baseball still swinging the bat. The NHL Stanley Cups will take a back seat to the NBA Finals. I want to get your thoughts in the final minutes, Big C. What you're looking forward to mostly coming up this week, Big C. Go right ahead, sir.
Well, when you talk about the Stanley Cup taking a back seat to the NBA Finals, and the Predators lost their second game in Pittsburgh last week, they're going to go down 0-2.
Yeah.
And they're going to go back home, hopefully, for some help from that home crowd. But, a point I wanted to bring up, Jonathan, this is the Warriors' trip
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
finals.
Yeah.
Fourth time. The Warriors have won 2 times previous in their history, okay?
Yeah.
Both of those times that they won were in odd number years.
Yeah.
1975, Charlton.
Yeah.
2015.
Yeah.
We're in 2017 right now, an odd number year once again, Charlton.
Yeah.
So, based on the numbers, everything rides in Golden State's favor.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's LeBron's series to lose. But I'm expecting a great championship run here, Charlton. Competitive every game. This is what the NBA has been built for and is all about. Adam Silver, you got to think about Adam Silver's first 2 years in the NBA.
Oh, yeah.
His first year in the NBA, he orchestrated one of the greatest finals in NBA history.
Yeah.
Allowing Cleveland to come back from a 3-1.
Orchestrated is the right word. That's the right word, Big C. I see you've been using your thesaurus. Go right ahead. Great way to orchestrate.
You got to think about Adam Silver. learned a lot from David Stern about being a marketing guru.
Yeah.
And, you know, for this trilogy to occur and have these two teams together, something came out today in the news.
Yeah.
It was LeBron, but Kevin Durant said he's willing to stay in Golden State and take less money to keep Klay Thompson and Draymond Green.
That's a champion.
And as I told people before, Kevin Durant's not broke, so he didn't care about the money. And that's what people talk about. How could he leave, you know, Oklahoma City and leave the money on the table?
Yeah.
Well, he had a lot to bank, so he didn't have no more room in his safety deposit.
That's true. That's true.
So when you think about this, I look at this being set up for quad play, all right?
Yeah.
To have Golden State win this year, and we come back with Cleveland next year, Jonathan, because neither one of these teams are going to disband. So I'm kind of going to ride with you in Vegas on this, giving Golden State the upper hand, and Adam Silver also for helping create this great scenario of having a trilogy, all right?
It sounds
and
good.
Being able to set it up for teams to play 4 times in succession in 4 consecutive years.
Sounds good to me, Big C. And as we always tell you, every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, follow Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network, the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. We always tell you there's never any reason for domestic violence. Just call 911 if someone's going through that garbage. And as we tell you on every program, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.